uncertainty still dominating the global economy, the BRICS nations will be looking at ways to strengthen trade ties and ensure financial stability. From Delhi, Shilpa Kannan reports.
Affordable grooming. Selling shampoos, conditioners and hair oils is big business. Packaged in small sachets, they cost up to 3 rupees, far less than a cent per packet. These give people in villages a taste of urban products for very little money.
Rural India is increasingly becoming a testing ground for new products and services. Indian companies are finding that if it can work here, it can work anywhere. That includes lucrative markets as far as Africa and Brazil, which are similar to India in many ways. For Indian companies, it's an opportunity to replicate the profitable yet low-cost models that they've perfected in rural India.
Like Dabur, a 100-year-old Indian company that makes personal care and food products. Their international business now contributes to 1/3 of their sales. They have a strong presence in Africa and now want to enter Brazil.
Particularly in Africa, I think the Indian expertise of building presence in a developing economy with poor infrastructure and something which has with the evolving consumer is very relevant for the Africa piece, because we can do whatever we've done in India in Africa with appropriate tweaking, and the learnings in India are extremely valuable in that frame of reference. Not so much for the developed markets, and therefore we are more focusing on emerging markets in Africa than others.
Emerging nations are increasingly grouping together to strengthen trade and ties. As economic growth in the Western world has stalled, BRICS, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, are finding many common economic and trading interests. India has now proposed setting up a BRICS bank along similar lines to the IMF and the World Bank.
Global economic growth has to be kept robust, and South-South cooperation has to be viewed in this context. There is a rebalancing of the global economic order. The architecture is changing. More than 60% of the global economic output is coming from the countries of the South or the countries of the East. When we look at India's own engagement, not only vis-a-vis China, but with Asia, Africa and Latin Americas, that constitutes 57 or 58% of India's trade.
Besides being a financial institution for its member countries, the joint bank would support infrastructure projects in other developing countries. Even the IMF admits that this would be in line with the growing economic power of the 5-nation group.
Whatever is done in terms of intra-trade, particularly South-South, between emerging markets, between Brazil and India, between Africa and China, between India and China, and so on and so forth, is probably going to be, the game of the day in the near future, because that's where a lot of development is taking place.
While economics is likely to dominate the discussions, the BRICS nations share more than just political ambition. They have similar challenges in dealing with social welfare, development, and improving the prospects of millions of their poor.